I'm Jackie.
And I'm Ashley.
And welcome to
Redrum and Rosé.
Which we copy from
Roses and Rosé. I know, we're
I'm
buyers.
Lauren Zima. And not though.
So today we are drinking Pinot Noir from this awesome winery called Clos de Chance. I'm a member of, so thank you, Clos de Chance. It's quite delicious even though we're hungover today.
Yeah, I'm pretending to drink.
I'm actually
might sip
drinking Hair of the Dog. So today we are talking about family annihilators.
Just because someone looks okay doesn't mean they are. And like Ashley said, today we're talking about family annihilators or familicide. On December 24th, 2002, a pregnant Laci Peterson went missing, her husband the number one suspect. And on March 26th, 2018, Jennifer and Sarah Hart and their children died when an SUV driven by Jennifer drove over a 100-foot cliff. Both are such horrible crimes, but what could make someone annihilate their entire family? Before we jump into the crimes we're featuring today, let's learn a little bit about family annihilators. Familicide is defined as one family member who murders the other members of their family, commonly taking the lives of all. It is most often used to describe cases where a parent, usually the father, kills his wife and children and then himself. Family annihilators haven't gotten much separate attention in research and often get grouped with serial killers or spree killers, which gives them the trait that perhaps the killer just snapped. But this isn't usually the case with a family annihilator. Additionally, a serial killer or mass murderer will typically come from a bad background, whereas most family annihilators will come from a good one. They haven't been in trouble with the law, and nobody would ever suspect them of their crimes. Family annihilators are almost entirely male, middle-aged, and they appear to be good fathers and husbands. Researchers identified 4 common areas which may be the causes of such family murders: a breakdown in the family relationship and issues surrounding access to the children, money worries and financial hardship, cultural honor killings, and mental illness. They have also come to distinguish family annihilators of 4 main types: self-righteous, anomic, disappointed, and paranoid. The self-righteous type blames others, often their wives or estranged wives, for their downfall. The anomic type feels humiliated by external events like bankruptcy. The disappointed type feels let down by his family as if the social order is crumbling. And the paranoid type feels his family is under threat from outsiders. So, to stave off that threat, he takes it upon himself to murder them. It is more expected in society and within the criminal justice system for a male to commit violent crimes than a female. And when a female does commit a criminally violent act, it's viewed as more shocking and more surprising. When a woman commits a violent crime, it's often assumed that she's either evil or insane. In cases of female familicide, the motivations of a woman can be linked to mental illness, murdering their children out of a belief that they're saving them in some way. The psychological profile of a family annihilator is a complex one, and research is continuing to discover more information about the kinds of individuals and circumstances which can lead to these crimes. Warning signs can often be difficult to spot, especially when the families are private, which adds to the shock when these crimes do occur. So, now that we know a little bit more about the psychology of a family annihilator, let's talk about our first crime.
So, the case I'm going to be talking about is actually one that was based purely on circumstantial evidence. And to be honest, I'm not too sure if the man convicted actually performed this crime. I've gone back and forth wanting to review this case and finally bit the bullet. And I have picked the case of Scott and Laci Peterson. Now, this happened back in 2002. So how old were we? I was like 11 when this happened.
Yeah,
I think.
because I was actually sick with pneumonia. I was in middle school, so I got to sit at home and literally watch the trial like nonstop.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You had pneumonia?
I did in middle school.
I've never had pneumonia.
I stayed in the hospital. It was like my only hospital stay.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
At least you only had to stay in the hospital for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were very young at this point, And it's funny because you and I have talked about this, and Laci was 27 years old.
We actually have talked about her in a previous podcast, just like because we were so young when it happened to her. She seemed so old, but now I'm 26 and you're 28 and I still feel so young.
I know. Isn't that weird?
So it's crazy that like she was married, she was pregnant, and her life was just taken away so early on. We actually drove by her house in Modesto.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was after, because when she first went missing and they found her body, there was a lot of, like, shrine and gifts and stuff in front of the house, but by the time we drove by it, there was nothing out there.
Oh. Yeah, well, as Jackie said, it is in Modesto, California. And so Modesto is in the Central Valley, and it's actually not too far from where we're from. It's about 84 miles away, so a little over an hour drive from San Jose. And it pretty much is just surrounded by farmland, and actually they are well known for their farm-to-table movement. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Yeah. I actually didn't know what that is until recently when I went to Chicago and had breakfast at this farm-to-table. Whoa, I just stuttered really badly. Farm-to-table restaurant. It's actually really good. I've driven through Modesto quite a few times, but I've never actually stayed in Modesto. So I don't really know too much about it. I just know that there's just a bunch of they're really well known for like their agriculture, and they have like one really big winery there, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah. So Scott, though, he grew up actually in San Diego. So kind of a far, far, far away from Modesto. He grew up with 6 other siblings, and his parents were happily married. He was actually the only child from both of his parents together, though. All of the other kids were from different relationships prior. So he actually started playing golf at an early age. He would play golf with his dad all the time, and he actually dreamed of becoming a professional golfer. So he was accepted into Arizona State University on a partial golf scholarship, so he must have been pretty good. And he was actually kicked off the golf team for taking one of the other members out partying. So they went to a bar, and I guess this was like the #1 junior golfer in the country.
Ooh.
And he took this guy out to pick up chicks and like got him super drunk. And
Before like a tournament?
I don't know. It didn't say, but it resulted in a hangover, and the father of the junior golfer had Scott Peterson kicked off of the team.
Seems silly.
Yeah,
Unless he was underaged?
I don't know, because
Was this college?
This is college.
Oh, if he was, because usually you're a senior when you're 21, so if the kid wasn't a senior, he probably was underage.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so Scott got kicked off of the golfing. So, yeah, he got kicked out of the golfing team. So Scott ended up transferring to Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo, which is only about 2 hours away from us. I actually really love SLO. I've only been there like twice, but it's such a small town feel, but it's very close to the beach. It's very beautiful. And after he went to Cuesta, he actually transferred to Cal Poly, which is a really, really good school. He had planned to major in international business, but he changed his major to agricultural business.
Cal Poly is a party school.
Yeah, but it's actually a really, really good school.
Yeah.
Even though it's a party school, there's a lot of smart people that go there.
Okay, go on.
They also
not to rag on Cal Poly, just saying.
But they also have what was it? They have these like really cool courses that you can take that are like outdoorsy. Like they have a lot of agriculture, like how he's gonna be doing. But I think they also have like greenhouses and stuff like that where you can actually go and study cool plants and.
They do that in Davis too.
Oh. Well,
middle of nowhere places.
Yeah.
See, if you're really smart, you go to UC Davis for agriculture.
I wonder how.
Bam.
I wonder though.
Ragging on Cal Poly.
I know, but I wonder how much of a price difference.
Oh, I'm sure there's a fuck ton of price difference there.
Us poor people, we need to go to Cal Poly. Even though Cal Poly is still more expensive than what I can afford. So he changed his major from off track. He changed his major from international business to agricultural business, and I don't really know what that entails. Like,
agricultural business.
Yeah, like
probably just selling the stuff.
Selling like farm stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find that to be a very interesting major. I don't think I would want to do it. Bliss is just
He's
like...
licking himself. It's like, I can't leave him out there because he makes noise. I can't put him in here because he licks himself. Just go to sleep, man.
Professors who taught Peterson describe him as a model student. And one professor actually mentioned that he wouldn't have minded having a full classroom, all of Scott Peterson type people. Yeah, so I guess he was very likable. He used to work for a cafe in Morro Bay while attending college, and that's where he met Laci Roca. I like her last name Roca because it just reminds me.
Almond Roca?
Yeah. Even though I don't like almond Roca.
This morning
Roca,
it was bacon, now it's almond Roca.
I'm a foodie. So you met Laci Roca, who attended Cal Poly as well, and they met in 1994. And I was 3 in 1994. Gosh.
I was 2.
Jesus. When Laci had met Scott, she actually made the first move, and she sent her number to him. And,
ooh, a bold lady.
Getting it. She knows,
like a bold lady.
A woman who knows what she wants. She has more balls than I do. Yeah. That's for damn sure. I won't approach a guy.
Yeah.
So once she met him and sent her number to him, she actually went to her mother. This is kind of weird. She went to her mother one day, like right after, and said that she was going to marry him. So, I mean, like, that's a little weird, you know, like already thinking of marriage and you haven't even been on your first date yet, you know? Kind of weird.
Oh, they didn't even go on a date?
No,
she was just texting? Were they even texting?
Was texting a thing in the 90s?
I don't know, actually. I live in the now and totally forgot that might not have been a thing.
I don't know if texting was a thing.
Wait, so then how did she, like, think that she was gonna marry him? Did they talk on the phone?
Yeah.
Then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She had met him. If there was any interaction.
Yeah, she had met him and whatnot, and then she went to her mom and said, I met the man I'm gonna marry. And I'm like, okay. Alrighty. As Laci and Scott's Peterson relationship grew more serious, Scott decided to give up his golfing dreams to pursue a career in business, which is kind of silly because it's like, okay, you're already majoring in a business like degree, and you don't have a golf scholarship anymore. So I didn't think that he still had the dream of being a golfer.
I don't think your dreams go away just because your scholarship was taken.
Yeah, I suppose. So he gave up his golfing dreams to pursue a career in business. The two dated for 2 years before moving in together, which I feel like is a good amount of time to be dating someone before you actually move in. Like, how long have you were dating Ben until you guys moved in together?
Oh, I think less than a year, actually.
Holy
or
shit.
A year. No, maybe a year.
I feel like it was, at least a year.
It was about a year.
The two dated for 2 years before moving in together. In 1997, after Laci had graduated, the two got married. And when Scott graduated, because he was a little bit behind her, they opened up a sports bar called The Shack, which I actually really like that name, The Shack.
Oh, they opened a bar together?
Yeah, a sports bar.
That's cute.
Yeah, and business in the beginning was slow, but soon picked up, and they were able to sell their establishment in 2000 so they can move to Laci's hometown of Modesto. So, which is still very far away. I'm surprised at, like, how far away he's lived from his, hometown and is willing to move all the way to Modesto, which is even farther.
Yeah.
Laci worked hard at being the perfect housewife for Scott on top of being a part-time substitute teacher. And I didn't know that she was a substitute teacher until I started researching this.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. And in 2002, Laci became pregnant with her first child. On December 24th, 2002, the morning started off as usual. Scott woke up and headed out to go fishing in the San Francisco Bay, while 7.5-month pregnant Laci stayed home to bake cookies, walk the dog, and mop the kitchen floor. So Scott recalled Laci watching a cooking show on TV when he left the house. Apparently, he, remembered the exact... He's like, she was watching Martha Stewart, and they were talking about meringue, is what he had recalled all of that.
But see, when people are trying to get away with something... They try to remember
detail.
Exact details, but they may not even be, they're just, oh, I better say this. I better, like, check what it was. Like, there was this case a long time ago where a girl went missing. It was, like, a little girl. And the dad or parent or whatever knew exactly what socks she was wearing, too. And that was something that, like, that's something that alarmed the investigators. Like, really? You remember exactly what socks she was wearing? And it's because he, like, dressed her after he, like, killed her.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so he claimed that she was watching Martha Stewart and blah, 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 because she really liked watching cooking shows. She loved cooking and hosting parties and stuff like that. So that's what she was doing when he left the house. Scott had returned home in the afternoon to find that Laci was not home, but her purse, phone, and car were all still there, which is kind of weird. Like, where's your wife without anything?
Yeah, and see, we've talked about this before, too, of, like, leaving stuff, how, like, I always leave stuff around, but, like, where would your pregnant wife go without all of her shit?
Yeah.
Know? And she was super pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, I probably wouldn't go anywhere without my phone if I was that pregnant.
Exactly. So, yeah, and, like, she had no, like, her car was still home. Like, where the fuck had she gone?
Yeah.
You know, without a car or anything. But that didn't really alarm Scott when he got home. He decided to take a shower because he had gotten wet from the fishing trip prior. So he went and took a shower. And so, according to some neighbors, though, Laci was seen walking their golden retriever, Mackenzie, which I actually really love that name, Mackenzie, for a golden retriever.
That's adorable. I have
adorable.
a problem with human names for animals sometimes. Like, didn't you have one named, like, Martin?
Oh, yeah, I had a dog named Martin that I used to groom.
It's just strange to me. Or, like...
Yeah. But the mom called him Martin.
Oh.
Because she was, you know,
cute.
she had a little accent.
Yeah, like, there's some names that have translated over to become more of dog names.
Yeah.
But... it seems cute, but I don't think I'd name my own dog Mackenzie.
I really like the name Mackenzie, and I actually don't really like human names for dog names, even though my dog's name is Jake. I didn't name Jake, but I feel like it's very fitting for him, because he's just like, hello, my name is Jake. You know, that's my dog.
Does he talk to you like that?
Yes, he talks like that all the time, actually. Yes. Anyways, some neighbors actually claim they saw Laci walking Mackenzie that morning. And one neighbor said that she saw Mackenzie by himself wandering around the neighborhood with a muddy leash at around 10:45 in the morning, just by himself, which is kind of weird. Mm-hmm. But apparently Mackenzie...
Not if you're my dogs.
With a leash, though, attached and muddy?
Oh, no, that's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. I could see, because... So, apparently Mackenzie had a habit of getting out of the backyard, so the neighbors knew just to put Mackenzie back into the backyard. Mm. But to have a leash on and...
Yeah.
You know, so that's a little alarming, because who just has their leash on their dog in the backyard by themselves, you know? So that happened around 10:45 in the morning. So by the time 5:15 that evening rolled around, Laci still wasn't home. He hadn't heard from Laci. And so Scott called his mother-in-law to see if Laci was over there. And within the next half hour, Laci's stepfather was the one to call the police, not Scott. So, yeah, you know, kind of weird. When the police arrived at the Peterson residence and questioned Scott, his behavior had thrown them off. He was extremely calm and had a cool demeanor, and he wasn't asking the normal questions that someone whose loved one has gone missing. He was very, very just chill throughout the whole entire thing, which I feel like if I had a pregnant wife that was missing, I'd be flipping my lid. But I guess there's no correct way to act.
Yeah, they always say that, like, you don't know how somebody's gonna act when their loved one is gone.
Yeah. So, but the police immediately suspected him, but they didn't want to say anything. They didn't release that he was the prime suspect yet, because Laci's whole family actually supported him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
They loved him and just didn't think that he could have done anything to her. Mm-hmm. And so when the police asked where Scott was that day, here's a weird thing. Scott had told the police he was golfing, but then later changed his story to that he went fishing at the Berkeley Marina. So I don't understand why he had originally said that he went golfing when he went fishing. Because he also has, like, it timestamped. Like, he has a receipt from, like, from the marina.
I feel like I heard somewhere that he was supposed to go golfing, but ended up going fishing or something. And that's why he had said golfing at first. But I can't remember if that's correct. I've heard too many versions of, like, the Scott Peterson story. So I can't, like, keep all the info in my head.
Come on. You're supposed to be able to know everything. So around 2:15 in the afternoon, he had actually called Laci and left a voicemail and said that he was leaving Berkeley and on his way back home. And that's a pretty decent drive. So I would assume that he probably got back home around like 3:30 or 4 maybe. So I guess an hour of him being home and and realizing that Laci hasn't been home. I guess that's not too long of a time to be waiting. A few weeks later, on January 17th, 2003, a woman named Amber Frey stepped forward claiming to have had begun a relationship with Scott Peterson, but she had no clue that he was married. It also became known that he had 2 other affairs prior to Amber, all while being with Laci. So
I don't know if I knew about the 2 other affairs.
Right? I didn't know either. I only knew about Amber, so when I was researching, so what a piece of shit. Like, are you serious? 3 fucking affairs?
Did Laci know about any of them? Do they know? Like, did she ever talk to her family about it?
It was claimed that Laci, the family didn't say that Laci knew, but Scott said that Laci knew.
Yeah. I mean,
some women will stick around.
Well, and I was thinking, like, well, wouldn't she have told her family? But maybe not, because then they would be like, you should leave him, or she'd
And how
might feel
embarrassing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you're pregnant with him, and, like, he's been having an affair, you know? So he had 2 other affairs before Amber, but Amber was the most recent. And after knowing that, on January 24th, Laci's family withdrew all of their support for Scott's innocence. All of it. They were like, fuck you, bro. Which, I mean, I feel like I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, how suspicious, like, that you're having an affair and our, daughter goes missing.
And you can't get your story straight.
Amber, before it was known to the whole public, though, Amber had called in a hotline and told police that she had been seeing him. So during that time, she was working with the police, and they had recorded phone calls between the 2 of them.
Those, yeah.
Because she was trying to get him to admit something.
Yeah.
What's really weird is Amber Frey had told the police that Scott had mentioned that he had lost his wife on December 9th, and that it would have been his first Christmas without her. This is 14 days before she goes missing. He tells her that this is the first holiday without her. She's gone, I
don't know if I have goosebumps because I'm cold or because that's creepy.
It's creepy. Like, 14 days before your wife goes missing, and you tell this lady that, she's died, and that this is your first Christmas without her.
Yeah.
Like, that's a little weird. And so during all these recordings of their conversations, there was one phone call, and it was on New Year's. And Scott tells Amber that he's in Paris for New Year's and that the party's super crazy. And all the while, he's actually at Laci's candlelight vigil in Modesto while he's talking on the phone with her. I'm just like,
so
what? And Amber already at this point knew that he was lying.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you're a real piece of shit. And it was so easy for him to lie.
Yeah.
It listening to the recordings, it's just like, wow, like, I probably would have believed him too if I hadn't known. On April 13th, 2003, a couple had discovered a late-term male fetus on the shore of the San Francisco Bay. So they went missing December, and then all the way in April now, they found a body. The fetus had the umbilical cord still attached, but what was weird is it had tape wrapped around the neck.
Tape?
Yeah, which I hadn't known before.
Either.
But I read a couple times that there was actually tape wrapped around the child's neck. So I'm not sure if the child was born beforehand and then that happened, or if the child was born in the water and then just, stuff got wrapped around.
Yeah, because there's so much shit in the ocean.
Oh, gosh, right? Yeah, he was found on April 13th, and then the following day, the remains of a recently pregnant woman washed up on the shore 1 mile away from where the fetus had been discovered. The woman had been decapitated and was so decomposed it was hard to tell that it was even a human body. And also, like, partial of her limbs were gone. Mm-hmm. So, like, her body was messed up. And so on April 18th, which is 5 days later, a DNA test came back confirming that they were the bodies of Laci and her unborn son, Connor. Yes. So the cause of death was never determined, but the doctor who performed the autopsy of Connor determined the fetus had been expelled from Laci's decaying body, but he couldn't determine if the fetus had been born alive or dead. But they had no idea how Laci died or anything. And so the police had implanted a tracker in Scott's car during all of this. And now with the discovery of Laci and Connor's body, they fear that Scott would flee since he was in San Diego at the time. And that's very close to Mexico. So
at this point, had he already, like, done the hair dye and stuff?
So when he was arrested on April 18th, you're getting ahead, girl. On April 18th, the day that they were able to determine that those two bodies were Laci and Connor, in San Diego, near a golf course he was planning on meeting his family at, he was arrested. And what was suspicious during the arrest was that Scott had bleached his brown hair. He had dark brown hair, and he bleached it to this nasty-ass yellow blonde. Which I'm like, why would you bleach your hair?
Well, I don't know if you remember, but in college I bleached my hair, and it was so brassy, but I didn't understand how hair color worked back then, and I didn't want to spend money to dye my hair. So, yeah, it was just very bad, very brassy.
So what I'm thinking, though, so I guess there was, his family had said, like, he had bleached his hair because he was, like, trying to, like, not be recognizable by the media because people were following him.
Yeah.
And, but not only did he bleach his hair, he also had $10,000 in cash on him. He had shoved his car full of survival gear, camping equipment, four cell phones, his brother's license, and other miscellaneous items, including 12 tablets of Viagra. I read that and I was like, why the fuck do you have Viagra?
I'm gonna have sex with some bears.
But yeah, so
weirdo.
It's weird that he had all that money just on him.
Yeah.
And that he had all this survival gear and like 4 cell phones. Like it seems very weird.
Did he ever give an explanation?
So Scott's father had claimed that he had been living out of his car and that he had his brother's license because he used it to get a discount at a golf course because you had to be a San Diego residence to get a discount. So that's the reason why he had his brother's license, but there's no explanation with the $10,000 in cash, the survival gear, camping equipment, the 4 fucking cell phones. Yeah, there's no explanation.
For each of his other girlfriends.
Right. And also, why did you dye your hair? Who knows? I don't know. Anyways. On April 21st, 2003, Scott was charged for the 2 murders of his wife and unborn son, Connor. Now, the trial of Scott Peterson is definitely an interesting one, given all of the circumstantial evidence and lack of hard physical evidence. Scott's defense attorneys had believed that Laci had been kidnapped, held until she gave birth, and then dumped in the bay. However, the prosecution team had said the fetus was not full term and had died along with the mother at the same time. They also had thrown out the theory that Laci had been kidnapped by a satanic cult. Why is it that always it's a satanic cult?
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that there's satanic cults everywhere and they're just killing everyone. Yeah. You know? I just don't understand that theory.
I'm sure there are satanic cults somewhere, but that might kill people, but I don't think even if there are satanic cults, they probably don't kill people. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of cases where they do, but
yeah.
Not all of them.
They're not everywhere. They're not like my next door neighbor.
Right?
You know? I mean, I hope not. Maybe that's what they keep doing up there. God. They're so freaking loud.
They are very loud. The rolling noises that we hear.
What is the rolling? I don't understand the rolling. What are they rolling up there? I think it could be the closet, but why are you opening your closet so many damn times? I don't understand. Luckily I'm not usually in this room.
Just me.
And they're not here during the work week when we're working from the office. But I just don't understand what goes on up there.
Yeah, it's weird.
They're sacrificing somebody up there.
That's the satanic
They're rolling in and out the spick that you roast people on.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just rolling.
Because Scott had so much recognition by the media, it was hard for him to get a fair trial. Scott was receiving so much hostility in Modesto that his lawyers had asked for the trial to be held farther away. So the trial was moved as far as Redwood City, which is not far away at all. So Redwood City is only 89 miles away, and probably about an hour and a half drive.
Yeah.
And this was like a huge story for the entire Bay Area.
Yeah.
I feel like they needed to take this way farther. So I feel like that was not very fair, but what can you do?
But wasn't this case known, like, nationwide by this point?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Because, a pretty young pregnant lady went missing.
Yeah. But I still feel like he probably would have had a better chance if it was just still, like, out of the Bay Area. Held at,
Yeah.
Because everyone hated him at this point in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Everyone. So the only hard evidence that could be used against Scott was a single hair strand that was thought to be Laci's, found in Scott's boat on a pair of pliers. And I know this seems like a very strong piece of evidence, but couldn't it be possible that when he said goodbye to Laci, he hugged him, because Laci's a guy. Anyways, he hugged Laci, and then maybe her hair transferred to his jacket, and then could have ended up in his boat?
Yeah, I mean, my hair ends up in Bliss's food all the time, and he poops out my hair.
Yeah, I mean, like, we shed all the time. Like, my hair is everywhere. So, it's very possible that her hair... Look, there's hair on my hand right now I have to take off. So, it's very possible that he hugged her, her hair got on his jacket, and then that was transferred over to the pliers. I mean, I'm just putting that out there. So, I feel like that's not very strong evidence. So, it was also extremely alarming that Scott had ordered 2 porno channels on his cable days after Laci went and disappeared.
This guy is like an all-star husband for sure.
Right? I'm like, 3 affairs.
Like, I'm on the side that I do think that he killed her, but like, without that, if she was alive, he's still a shit husband.
Yeah, no, he was horrible, and I mean, he was just a liar constantly, and like, I feel so bad for her.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of wonder how their home life really was behind closed doors.
Right.
But yeah, so he ordered 2 porno channels after, like, literally days after Laci went and disappeared, and the prosecution claimed that this proved that Scott knew Laci wasn't coming home, because what husband would just, like, order that and then, like, I don't know. Unless they have this, like, weird relationship where it's just like, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's not a weird relationship. People watch porn together all the time. I don't know. Anyways. Scott also had sold Laci's car and was talking of selling their house. Mm-hmm. And mind you, he was arrested couple months, like 4 months after she went missing. And for him to do all of this, like, I don't know. I feel like if your pregnant wife goes missing, you wouldn't be doing all of these things within that short of amount of time. Right. Like, wouldn't you still be holding out for hope? Because you have no idea, like, where she is, or if she, if she was still alive at this point. She's coming home. Or exactly. You have no clue.
And you just want to get rid of her house and get rid of her car.
Right?
Have nothing for her to come home to.
Mm-hmm. And another piece of evidence was a hydrologist's statement about the tides of the San Francisco Bay and how it proved that Scott had dumped Laci's body when he went fishing that morning, but was later cross-examined, saying later that it was only probable, as the tides are chaotic. So he was like, for sure, and then he was cross-examined and he was like, well, no, it's not for sure, it's probable. So that was a weird thing. So I was like, okay. Another piece of circumstantial evidence used against Scott was that Scott Peterson had made 5 cement anchors, which one of them was found in the boat, but they figured that he had made 5 cement anchors to dispose of Laci's body. The other 4, though, that they said were used to sink her body had not been found. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, well, how do you know that he made...
Because they're at the bottom of the...
Yeah, but they didn't have proof that he actually made 5 anchors. It just looked like it.
Yeah.
There was no actual proof. Scott had said that he only made his 1 anchor, and the rest of the 90-pound bag he had used to fix his driveway. And a specialist had agreed that the cement in Scott's driveway was consistent of the anchor in his boat. But also on the other hand, I mean, if he had weighed down Laci's body with the anchors, that would explain why she was decapitated. Because after she starts, and like her limbs too.
Yeah.
That would definitely, after she starts decomposing, like, I could totally see, like, why that would have done that to her body. So, still very, very plausible. But I also found out that Scott had a very small boat. It was one of those very rinky-dinky, like, metal, like, little boats. I can't imagine him being able to load up his pregnant wife into the boat without anyone seeing, or because like it was such a small boat, like when people have seen there's a freaking body in the boat.
But I don't think many people were out fishing on Christmas Eve. You know, normal people are home with their families and pregnant wives.
Yeah. But then also, can you explain though? So say her body is in the boat, and he goes out there on the bay, which is very rocky already. How is he going to be able to get a pregnant woman with 5 cement anchors attached to her and push her over the boat without knocking the boat completely over topsided?
They actually did tests for it. One of them, they couldn't do it, but a couple of them, they could do it.
How does a person... I feel like I would never be able to do... I mean, yes, granted, I'm not as strong as a man.
Yeah, I was just about to say... Well, it's not that you're not as strong as a man, because women are strong. Stronger than men sometimes.
Amen. Preach.
PC police over here. You're just not very strong. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fine.
I have the upper body strength of a kitten.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
Cats are pretty strong and agile, though, for like, an animal, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like that wasn't a good one.
Maybe like a dog?
Yeah.
Like a puppy?
Because they don't really, like, climb or, like...
Yeah, cats actually can climb.
Cats are crazy and, like, up, like, fences and stuff.
Or maybe, like, a small rabbit. That's my strength. A small rabbit.
Okay.
I've got a lot of leg power. No upper body. Anyway. So, I'm just saying... I mean, could he have done it? Possibly. But it would have been very difficult, I feel like. Extremely difficult. I feel like the boat would have tipped over. And then one crucial fact that was never looked into thoroughly was on the day that Laci went missing. So a neighbor had seen 3 men outside of the house across the street from Laci, which was in fact being robbed. I guess the family across the street were out of town for the holidays, and some of the neighbors knew that. And so they found it very suspicious that there was a van with 3 men outside of the house. And this neighbor actually said that when she was driving by, that all of the guys were like staring at her. And she thought, that's weird. But didn't think of anything until Laci actually went missing. The police, though, had claimed that the robbery took place after Laci's disappearance on the 26th of December. But there was a reporter, Ted Rollins, who claimed that he was out front of the house that morning, and there were no robberies that took place on December 26th. Like, there was no one there. And it's because there was so much media going on because she disappeared on the 24th.
It's not really a good time to go rob a house.
Exactly.
Or it could be a good time to rob a house because nobody's paying attention.
But, so Ted said, though, the reporter, that if he had seen people out there, he would have interviewed them. Yeah. You know, and he didn't see anyone out there on the 26th.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you're a reporter, and this is a huge case. And
yeah.
It's a house right across from Laci's.
Yeah.
You know? Also, when the neighbor had reported this to the police initially told her that she was confusing the men in that yard with people who were working for her in her own yard.
What?
I would have been pissed. I've been like, are you serious?
Don't tell me what I'm confusing.
Right?
Especially when it comes to people who are working at my house.
You would think that you would know your own men, right?
Yeah.
And so they were trying to convince her of that, but her statement had never changed. And so I'm not sure why this wasn't looked into further. I feel like they kind of wanted to just pin it all on, you know, and not want to search into that, you know? And it was just like, why? Like, I don't understand that.
Or they tried to and nothing came of it.
I don't know. But, like, I feel like couldn't it have been a big possibility that Laci had approached the men because she knew that the neighbors were out of town?
God, I would never do that.
I would have never done it either.
But that
would explain why Mackenzie had a leash on and was just walking around because she was walking Mackenzie, she could have approached the men and they could have taken her. What's weird is that there were a total of 11 witnesses that claimed to have seen Laci walking the neighborhood with Mackenzie after Scott had left for fishing that day. 11 people had claimed to see her. So I don't know why this wasn't talked more about at the trial. And then, so on November 12th, 2004, Scott was found guilty of murdering Laci and their son Connor. And on December 13th, he was sentenced to death. And members of the jury stated that the biggest evidence was the phone calls he had with Amber Frey, which is his mistress. And just the way that Scott had behaved. He had lacked emotion of someone who would have been innocent in the courthouse. But like we said earlier, I don't think there is a certain way that someone's supposed to act during this type of thing. Everyone has their own different way of
let's say that
things.
he didn't kill her, right? Not only does he have to deal with the grief of losing his wife, he's also on fucking trial for her murder. So, you're combining two things, and it's well, you're probably emotionally spent, or you're just sitting there, totally numb, broken, but also broken because you're on trial for murder.
Yeah.
I still think he did it.
And actually, there were his whole jury. It was a mess. It took forever.
Didn't a couple people break the jury rules?
Yes, and they had to replace them. At least 2 or 3 jurors had to be replaced, and during the entire trial, which sucks that had to happen. But also just trying to find a fair jury panel was so difficult because everyone in that area believed that he was guilty already.
Yeah.
And so it was just and then it was a whole controversy, and I feel like he kind of got shafted in a way with that, but
well, I wonder how far you can actually move a trial.
I don't know.
I wonder what the rules are, because I don't think that Casey Anthony's was moved any crazy amount of space. She was still in Florida. And speaking of Casey Anthony, she wants to help Scott Peterson get off, but I feel like when you're looking at both cases, I mean, given what I've watched about Casey Anthony, and I've watched and listened to a lot of things about her too, I feel like Scott had less circumstantial evidence than Casey Anthony's case. If anything, he should have gotten off, and she should be in fucking jail right now.
For Casey Anthony, didn't they prove that there was a dead body in her trunk?
They didn't. Did they prove?
Because they said the
I
car
forget.
smelled really bad, and they had
but there was
material in there.
trash. But then they found, what's the stuff that people put over your mouth to make you pass out?
Chloroform?
Yeah. But then they said that, the decaying trash could have, done... There was, so much back and forth with it. But, she lied about her kid being missing for months. And, then what the fuck happened to her? At least with Laci Peterson, there's another scenario that could have happened. But, somebody killed the kid. So who? The daughter that had been lying about her missing for months, maybe? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Well, yeah, then what happened? Because
also, wasn't she in a party stage too, where she didn't want to have a kid?
She didn't want to have a kid. Her mom told her she was gonna have it, and she just wanted to hang out with her boyfriend. They said that she loved her daughter, but she didn't really want to be a mom. And then a lot of people were saying that she always seemed sleepy, the daughter, and so now that she's passed, they think that maybe she was giving her medicine to make her go to sleep and stuff.
Yeah.
So that way she wouldn't have to
That's some fuck shit,
deal
man.
with her and stuff.
Oy.
But it's I feel like she should be in jail for sure. Oh, I'm part of a Facebook group for My Favorite Murder podcast, and there was somebody who posted on there. They have a friend who's friends with Amber Frey, and just said that she's a nice, normal person whose life just got turned upside down because she happened to date a guy who possibly killed his wife, and she got so much hate for it, but was just she was communicating with police right away. She was so cooperative, and, like, wanted to figure out what was going on, but her life just got turned upside down.
Yeah, I felt bad
and
for
she was
her.
just this normal person, is still this normal person, but now is very, like, shied away because of, like, everything that happened that she had to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wonder if she still lives in the same area.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like after that point, I'd probably try to move somewhere where it's like I'm less known.
Yeah, and I think a lot of time has passed too, at least for Amber Frey. Like, if she walked down the sidewalk, I wouldn't know who she was. And I can think in my head what Amber Frey looks like right now, but if I were to look at her in person, I don't think I'd recognize her at all. So.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing happened, 17 years ago?
Yeah.
So long ago. I feel like, I don't think that this case will ever be forgotten, but I feel like a lot of people will kind of forget some details along the lines of, like, that. They'll know, like, they'll remember, like, oh, he had an affair, but I don't think they'll actually remember, like, oh, the name, you know?
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, Scott is sitting on death row in San Quentin, and his family, including actually his sister-in-law, are trying to get a retrial. Because...
Really?
Yes. Because of the fact that there was a robbery on the same day and of the sightings of Laci after Scott had left the house. Yeah. They think that he was wrongfully convicted. They're now believing that he could be innocent.
Does Laci's parents think that he could possibly be innocent?
There was nothing... Did you see anything? There was nothing written about the parents, but just about the sister-in-law.
Wow. Yeah. I guess, like, at the end of the... So, you know how sometimes they're like... No, we don't want a retrial at all for this person. But if there is doubt, like, I would want to know for sure. Mm-hmm. Like, I would want to know for sure if he did it.
Well, yeah.
Or didn't do it, you know? If there is doubt. But you also don't want a guilty person to accidentally walk free because you can't prove it a second time.
Yeah.
You know? So there's that, like, touchy fence.
Yeah, and then also... I watched a documentary. It's actually a really good documentary on Hulu about the Scott Peterson.
Oh, I watched that one too.
And so
did we watch it together?
No, we didn't watch it together. But I mean, do you remember how his father at the end was talking about Scott? It seemed that his own father didn't really believe that he was innocent.
Oh, no, I don't remember.
So, I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm still convinced he did it.
I mean, yeah, I think he did it, but it definitely did put a little bit of doubt in my mind that I didn't have before. Because it was just like, wow, like, they didn't really have actual hard proof at all.
Yeah.
You know?
I would want to know if he didn't do it, but I still think he did it.
Like, could you imagine, like, being related to someone who, like, had so much going for them, and then all of a sudden them just, like, murdering their
I think
family?
about that sometimes, and I'm just like, I don't know what I would do.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even... Anyway... So that was my case. Yeah, so I guess you guys can let us know what you think, if you think Scott actually did it or not. I don't know.
So my story is about the Hart family, and they were a family of 8. When the Hart family SUV was found at the bottom of a California cliff, there was no reason to believe that it was anything but an accident. However, as the investigation went on, secrets and truths began to reveal themselves. Jennifer Jean Hart grew up with her parents and 2 brothers in Huron, a town of 13,000 in the eastern South Dakota Plains. She and her siblings were talented musicians, with Jen playing the trumpet at Christmas church services. When she was 12, her parents divorced. She stayed with her mother and siblings in her blue childhood home. Jen then moved to her father's at 14, but she was breaking a few rules, so he sent her back to her mother's home.
Rebel.
In 1999 was when Jen transferred to Northern State University, and she met her future wife, Sarah. Sarah and Jen were madly in love. In 2000, Jen had her first run-in with the law when she was caught trying to steal a pair of Nikes. She said she didn't know why she did it, just that there was a lot going on in her life. Jen and Sarah started their family in Alexandria, Minnesota, a Scandinavian town surrounded by lakes. They bought a 2-story house near a busy street that leads past the mall where they worked. Their first experience with fostering was with a 15-year-old girl who went by Lee in her interview to protect her identity. She moved into the Minnesota home in the summer of 2005 and stayed until spring. The Harts were in their mid-20s at the time. The first 6 months were great, but it was around that time that the couple insisted she have a makeover, and started
Makeover?
they brought her to a mall to, like, make her over. And somebody remembers thinking that she wasn't happy, and the Harts just said that they were having trouble with, like, her behavior, and they started making false claims about her, including saying that they had found her eating out of the garbage.
Ew.
Which she said she didn't do, and she actually wasn't starving or anything, that they took great care of her. But Lee and Jen would get into fights about petty little things. Jen once ignored Lee for weeks after a football player signed a football for Lee instead of Jen. She thought that Lee was just being a brat. The couple was also overprotective. They wouldn't let Lee leave the house unless it was for work or school. But the family was excited to grow together, and the Harts were expecting to adopt 2 more sets of siblings from Texas. Lee was really excited to be a big sister. Jen and Sarah went to Texas to go see the kids and the birth mother, and when they returned, they shared photos of the children to Lee, and again, they were all just really excited to welcome these new family members. However, a week before the children were to arrive from Texas, Lee was dropped off to her therapist appointment, where it was the therapist, not the Harts, that told Lee that they would not be coming back for her. They did not even tell her goodbye. Lee does say that, she was devastated. She kind of grew from it, and then she found her next foster mom, who she refers to as her mom now, so she ended up okay. She is shocked that this case did happen. She didn't even think about this family until she heard about the case. So by 2008, Jen and Sarah had 6 adopted children: Marcus, Hannah, Abigail, Devontae, Jeremiah, and Sierra.
That's a lot of kids.
It is. And a lot of them were actually, like, siblings. I don't actually know which ones were biologically related to each other, but like I mentioned earlier, they were going to get 2 sets of siblings, so at least there's those 2 sets that are related. Jen stayed home while Sarah worked, and she shared all of her family's moments on Facebook, from teaching them the trumpet, to haircuts, to proud parent moments, like when Devontae came home with a list of compliments from his schoolmates. But eventually, Jen felt that school and home were no longer safe places. She said that the children were being discriminated against because of their race and their parents. They're lesbians who have Black children.
Yeah.
So she said that they were getting a lot of physical threats and name-calling on the daily. The Harts were also calling the police constantly against their neighbor who had made comments about the couple's sexuality, but police were eventually able to make peace between the neighbors. In later 2008, Hannah went to school with bruising. She said that she had been hit with a belt, but no charges were filed. 2 years later, in 2010, 6-year-old Abby showed up to school with a bruise and said that Jen had given it to her. Abby stated that Jen had held her under cold water and punched her because she thought Abby had stolen a penny. The Hart children were interviewed by a caseworker or department authority, and they stated that they were often spanked, denied food, and grounded. But when Sarah and Jen were interviewed, Sarah took the blame for striking Abby. She was arrested, and 4 days later, Jen posted on Facebook that they would all be moving. Sarah was convicted of misdemeanor domestic assault and sentenced to probation and 1 year of community service. The couple then pulled the children out and started homeschooling them. This left the children totally isolated.
Well, I feel like if one of them was arrested for hitting one of the children, I feel like they probably should have taken the kids kind of out of that situation instead of letting that same person come back into the children's life, I feel like she almost got, a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. But if we, think back to Lee, their first foster child, she actually commented that she was shocked that it was Sarah that was arrested because Jen was the one that kind of, had the mood swings and, they fought over the petty things. So she was shocked that it was Sarah that got arrested.
I wonder if Sarah just, took the blame.
Well, yeah, because Abby said that Jen hit her.
Yeah.
But Sarah took the blame for it. So we don't really know what the reasoning was there, but...
Because Jen's the ringleader and Sarah's a little bitch.
A neighbor in Minnesota described the couple as friendly, but admits that the children's behavior bothered her because they just didn't act like normal children. One example she brought up was that they would come down the steps in a single file line, and if they wanted to go to the backyard, it would all be in just a single file line. When they would get out of a car, Jen would walk around and open each door to let the kids out before they filed into the home. So they seemed highly, highly disciplined. In 2013, the family left Minnesota and moved to Portland. Within days of their arrival, Devontae, who was always a standout child, wound up in the newspaper for his dancing at the market. Jen had a friend in Portland who said that Jen was the most gentle, kind, and humane person, but while she had these nice things to say, there were also a few eerie ones, like Jen claiming that the children could not be left alone or would never grow to lead normal lives. Her friend rarely saw or interacted with all of the children, maybe just a few of them, and Jen claimed that some of the children were born addicted to drugs, adding to their growth issues because the children were small. However, after the crash, a biological aunt of a few of the children said that those claims were completely false. And actually, I read that one of them was born with drugs in their system, but that was, like, fixed and he should have grown normally.
Yeah, don't you just, like, kind of grow out of
I think
that?
so.
Like,
I'm not quite sure how it works. I read somewhere that this child should have grown normally. I'll get to the size of the children in a little bit too, but they were, like, something was wrong.
So, also, moving from Minnesota to Portland, that's a huge move. Was there a reason why they moved to Portland, or is it just because, like, they had a friend there? Or, like, do you know the backstory of, like, why Portland?
They moved a lot.
It just
and
was like,
so,
let's go to Portland.
I'll get to that too.
Okay, sorry.
Or you'll also see probably a trend. The family's life was carefully curated online by Jen, portraying a happy and healthy family that were socially conscious and traveled frequently. We are missing a few years, though, when the family was under investigation for abuse, and there were a couple times there, not just once. Those who knew and actually saw the family could see behind the facade. One person referred to Jen as a master poster. Another actually notified the Oregon Department of Human Services in 2013, saying, "The kids pose and are made to look like one big happy family, but after the photo event, they go back to looking lifeless." Others noted the small size of the children. Hannah was 14, but she looked 7.
Whoa.
Some would note that, I think it was Devontae, who seemed like his head was too big for his body because his body wasn't growing. And yet another commented that Jen ran the family like a boot camp and the kids acted like trained robots that were scared to death of Jen. I'm sure it takes a lot for people to say those kind of things about a person and about somebody's family.
They look like such a happy family, though, in these pictures, you know? It's crazy.
And they would take pictures with signs that are saying, like, be kind or things like that.
Free hugs.
They said that Devontae usually always wore, like, a free hugs sign, things like that. After numerous complaints, child welfare authorities paid the Harts a visit in 2013, but all 6 of the children stated that there was no abuse in the home. However, the investigator did note that the children showed little emotion or animation, but since there was no concrete evidence to show abuse, the case was closed. The family later gained worldwide attention when Devontae was pictured hugging a police officer in 2014 during a Black Lives Matter protest. He's seen tears streaming down his face, hugging the police officer.
I'm actually looking at that right now.
And I think that's why this case had stood out to me when I first heard it, is because I had seen that picture, and then when the crash happened, they were talking about how he was the kid that had that photo. So after that photo, the family's home was being stalked out by reporters, and Jen reportedly turned down offers of all kinds, claiming that they didn't want the attention, and she just wanted to protect her son's privacy. Jen disappeared from social media for some time, but in 2017 she was back, and the family had moved to Washington. Jen said that they were being stalked and harassed. They had made many phone calls to the police, but there's no record of them actually responding to any of the calls made by the Harts. So the trend here is they left Minnesota after they were being investigated. They left Portland after they got investigated.
And now they're in Washington.
Now they're in rural Washington.
Jeez.
Their neighbors, Bruce and Dana DeKalb, noticed that the children rarely left the house and that the blinds were usually drawn. Then, in August 2017 at 1:30 a.m., Hannah showed up at their front door, frantic and asking for protection. When they noticed that her 2 front teeth were missing, she said that she jumped from a second-story window just so she could get next door. She wanted to be hidden and begged not to go back, stating, "They're racist and they abuse us." Shortly after, Jen showed up and took her daughter back home. I think if it were me, I would have called the cops before letting the girl go back home, but, like, hindsight is always 20/20.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure if they could go back, they might want to do something differently. But Hannah also looked very young, but she wasn't. I think she might have been 16. They thought she was young. They thought she was a little kid. So the next morning, the family, the whole tribe, went back over to the DeKalbs, and Jen used the drug babies excuse and said that they act out, using that as the reason as to why Hannah went over in the middle of the night. She explained that the teeth were actually knocked out when she accidentally fell. When asked if they could speak to Hannah alone, Jen said they do everything as a family.
Yeah, that's a big red flag.
Hannah handed them a letter of apology, saying that she lied to get attention. So I want to read Hannah's letter and see what you think of it. Dear Dana Bruce, I stopped this morning because I feel awful about disturbing your peace and worrying you in the middle of the night. I was very frustrated with my brother and didn't handle things very maturely. And I'm sorry for telling lies to get attention. I'm working on being more honest and finding better ways to communicate my frustration. I've been sad about 2 of our cats dying recently, so I was very sad and frustrated last night. Thank you for being kind, Hannah.
That's a little weird. Like, first, I don't know. I feel like that was definitely not like... You could tell that's her writing, but definitely probably like the parents telling her to write all that stuff. I would feel like. I don't feel like it's very...
Like, childlike?
Yeah.
So Dana felt the same way. She felt like it was not a way that a child would write and felt like one of her parents had coached her. Mm-hmm. But she also felt that maybe Jen was telling the truth, that Hannah was a troubled girl. She said that Jen just so confidently and easily told this story of a troubled past.
Yeah.
And she said that Jen just sold it really well. So it did plant that seed of doubt of, like, maybe this girl is just really troubled and seeking for attention.
Jeez.
The DeKalbs did report them to the authorities, but there was no follow-up action taken at that time.
Which is kind of surprising, because whenever it's dealing with, like, children, I feel like...
Better safe than sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, children can't protect themselves, you know?
So Dana actually tried really hard with this. As I read through an interview with her, she started keeping notes on the family because she wanted the next time she called authorities for them to not have an excuse to not go over. She found excuses to walk outside, to keep an eye on things. She, like, started power walking, and she would just kind of walk back and forth on the same street. She would check her mail more frequently. She would do yard work in a certain part of her yard so she can try to keep an eye on things. So she was pretty, like, suspicious of stuff and really, like, tried to work to do something about it. Mm-hmm. But so that wasn't the last alarming encounter that they would have with the Hart children. In March 2018, Devontae approached Bruce asking for food and asked that Bruce not tell his parents. Bruce didn't think anything too much about it, just because it seemed like a neighbor asking for food, or, you know, like asking for a cup of sugar. He actually just came over to ask for tortillas. So he gave him food, but turns out it wouldn't be the only time Devontae would ask for some. Devontae eventually gave his neighbor a wish list of food, things like non-perishables, granola bars, things like that, and asked Bruce to leave the items in a box by the fence where his parents wouldn't notice.
Whoa.
Bruce didn't want to call authorities before because he didn't want to start drama. They had gone so many years with drama with their previous neighbors over, like, a landline, a property line, that he didn't want to cause trouble, but at this point things were getting really scary.
Yeah.
So finally...
I mean, I would totally call the cops, like, hands down.
So Devontae finally did tell the DeKalbs that his parents withheld food sometimes for days at a time. He said that Sarah used to push back on Jen, but not anymore. And finally he told them that everything Hannah told them was true, but Jen told them things that would make them happy and kind of off her back. So Bruce decided it was time to call the authorities again, and this time, a CPS worker visited the house, but nobody was home, so they left their card. The next day, on March 24th, the DeKalbs noticed that the car was gone, which was odd for them. And unknown to the neighbors, Sarah had sent a 3 a.m. text to her coworker stating she was too sick to come to work. Sarah's employer also eventually became worried and asked for a welfare check on the home.
So, one thing that I find kind of weird is, like, with the Child Protective Services, that they left their card. I feel like, wouldn't they want to surprise them, you know?
I don't know, I guess, but they have to, like, investigate first without going in thinking that you're guilty right away, right?
Yeah.
But who knows? No one knew it then, but all 8 of the Hart family members were in the car driving south along Highway 1, perhaps feeling that authorities would uncover abuse and neglect. They decided to leave their home once again, just as they had done in Minnesota and Oregon. But this time, they just wouldn't be posting smiling faces all over Facebook. The last sighting of the Hart family members alive was at a Safeway grocery store in Fort Bragg, California, on March 25th. The camera captured Jen paying for some groceries, about $20 worth. The next day, their Yukon was spotted belly up on the rocks at the bottom of a cliff by a passing motorist, only 25 minutes away from that grocery store. A witness who was camping near where the vehicle drove off the cliff said he heard sounds of a car revving up and accelerating early in the morning. Some believe that the crash had to have been an accident at first. The Hart pets were still at home, and the conditions there looked as though they weren't planning to be gone long. There were toothbrushes there, nothing looked to be packed, the luggage was there. But as the scene was analyzed, the disturbing truth emerged. Jen was at the wheel when she pulled off of Highway 1 onto a gravel turnout about 70 feet from the cliffs. She then accelerated the car to roughly 90 miles per hour and plunged the car off of the 100-foot cliff onto the rocks below. We know that she didn't touch the brakes at all because the investigators found no skid marks. No one in the car was wearing a seatbelt.
Oh, yeah.
Jen had alcohol in her system that was above the legal limit, and Sarah and 2 of the children had taken antihistamines that caused drowsiness.
So how come no one was wearing seatbelts?
Yeah.
Like, I am always wearing my seatbelt. Always. I feel uncomfortable in a car without my seatbelt on. Like, it's kind of crazy that none of the kids are wearing seatbelts.
Sometimes my brother won't put his seatbelt on, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Put your stupid seatbelt on. It's such a small thing. Like,
it really is.
Even if you get into a small accident, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, you could go flying.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, I think my mom kind of engraved it in my brain at such an early age to always wear your seatbelt that, like, it's... Like, I'll sit in a car, and sometimes when the car's parked, like, I just feel more comfortable with my seatbelt on, you know? But, like, my little cousin... Oh my god, he was a nightmare trying to get his seatbelt on all the time.
That's so weird.
He would stand in the back seat when my aunt was driving.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was so bad.
He had a straight jacket.
I know.
So, everyone in the car was dead when investigators arrived, but 3 of the children were missing. On April 8th, nearly 2 weeks after the crash, 12-year-old Sierra's body was found, and Hannah's body was not identified until January 2019.
Whoa.
The article that I read said that they actually only found a shoe that had a foot in it still.
Oh!
So, but I don't know if they found the rest of her body or if it was just the foot. A lot of the articles were actually still old that I was reading and said that Hannah was still missing. But then I saw one that they identified her body. Devontae, though, is still yet to be found. However, he's believed to have been killed in the crash and is legally declared dead. Authorities believe that both Jen and Sarah had succumbed to a lot of pressure with everything going on in their lives. They just got to a point where they would end their lives and take their children's lives. Sarah had used her phone on the road to search for information on suicide, drowning, and overdose methods.
Jeez.
Some of her searches were, is death by drowning relatively painless? How long does it take to die from hypothermia in the water while drowning in a car? Or how much, it was one of the antihistamines, will this many milligrams kill a 125-pound woman? One of her last searches was for no-kill dog shelters.
Like for their animals?
Yeah. Authorities believe that when they left the house, they didn't know what they were going to do, but at some point during that drive, they made the decision, if they can't have their kids, then nobody was going to have them. In 2019... a 14-member jury was presented with the evidence, and after less than an hour, decided that the 6 children had been intentionally killed by their adoptive parents in the murder-suicide crash. Some still can't imagine that they could have done this on purpose, citing mental health playing a large role in the tragedy. But one question investigators would ask is, would they be the type of people to say, if I can't have my children, nobody can? And most of them say, yeah, Jennifer would say that, or yeah, that would be both of them. People who knew the family have a hard time knowing what was real and what was fake when they look back on the couple's lives and social media posts. One friend reflected on a photo of the children standing in front of paintings, but there's no paint on the brushes, making her rethink everything she saw in the past, like, did the kids actually do art? Did they actually paint? Were they happy? She doesn't know what to believe anymore when she looks at these photos of the family. So the Harts were involved in abuse cases in multiple states, but there's no national database for child abuse allegations. So hopefully this case can be an eye-opener for lawmakers, because maybe they would have been found out before they killed their children. Maybe that first call to the authorities, they could have looked something up and seen that they were in trouble with child services before and would have gone out right away.
Yeah, like, you would think that they would be
some
put
sort
on
of
the radar.
probation for child abuse if you're gonna be okay with it.
Oh yeah, because I feel like when you're a sex offender, you're on a list no matter where you go. Mm-hmm. Even if you were to go to a different state later on, you're still on a sex offenders list.
Yeah.
I feel like anyone who is, like, there's allegations or anything, or, like, someone goes to jail for child abuse, that should be on a record worldwide.
Yeah.
You know? Just like if you're a sex offender. Because child abuse is actually very common, and it's a very, very depressing thing.
Well, and especially with, in general, but, like, foster kids. Yeah. And adoptive kids.
Like, I hear that, like, a lot of foster people only do it just to get the check,
money.
Right?
Yeah, and so some of them are really shitty. But that's not to say that everybody is, because there's some great fucking fabulous people there who take in children who need lots of help, too, on top of that, and just give them love, and more power to all those people. Yeah. Because it's amazing, and there are so many kids who need families, and it's so sad. And especially, like, the older kids, people usually don't adopt older kids, because they do have more of a troubled past, maybe, or you didn't get to raise them, so they might already have behaviors that you don't like. But there are people who adopt older kids, and I love those people. Yeah. They're awesome.
So what I'm curious still about is Devontae.
Yeah, he's most likely gone.
I'm wondering if, like, maybe, do you think wildlife probably took...
He could have just been washed out in the water.
Oh, yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. So, there's still so many questions that we'll unfortunately never have answers to. Was this decision spontaneous or planned?
I feel like it was planned.
Was Sarah a willing participant? But the only people who know the answers to these questions died in the crash, so we may never really understand why all 8 of the family members had to die that day.
So I think it was planned, and I feel like Sarah probably did have, because you said that she was the one who was searching up all those suicide things, right? So, like, I feel like she had to have been, totally a part of it, because, like, why would you be searching up suicide, and, like, if it would be painful, and this and that, and then also you were saying she searched up antihistamines, and, like, she was already on antihistamines, and a couple of the kids, right? Yeah,
I wonder, though, if they did make the decision, maybe at that, like, Safeway stop, because Jen then had, like, alcohol. They had been driving for forever. Like, remember, they left from Washington, and at this point,
they were on
crashed
Highway
their car
1.
in California, like, near Big Sur-ish area, I think. And so I wonder if, like, at some point they stopped somewhere and grabbed the antihistamines and grabbed the alcohol. I don't know if they know what she bought when she went to the grocery store, but I wonder if it was, like, near that moment that she was like, okay, I'm going to drink a shit ton to, like, give myself the courage to do this. And then they took some antihistamines so that way they'd be, like, drowsy and stuff when the crash happened, or calm. And what I wonder, too, is, like, if the kids were all awake, like, how scary that must have been, because they're just seeing their mom accelerate to a cliff.
Yeah.
I hope that they were, like, asleep, but there's so many children, so they can't all be asleep unless they
And how do you, like, not wake up, like, during...
Yeah, and so I just imagine how scary that must have been for them.
And I'm also wondering, like, what if the parents made them not wear their seatbelts? because all of them not wearing seatbelts, like, that's just so bizarre for me to, like, kind of comprehend.
Yeah, it was totally, like, prepared for, like, maximum damage.
Yeah.
Going off the cliff without your seatbelt, so you're, like, tumbling in the car. And, like, I hope that they died in the crash before, like, drowning. Or that they were unconscious when the water came over, because that's just...
Well, because I'm also wondering, like, say that at least one of them had their seatbelt on. I wonder if they would have even been able to survive the crash even with a seatbelt on.
Yeah.
Because that's a far drop.
Yeah.
And then you're hitting...
And they went upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the Hart family.
It's sad, because, I mean, during that whole time you were talking, I was looking at photos of them, and it was just... It's so sad to, like, see them look so happy and then just to know a completely different story. And it really tells you, like, you can't really just judge a person by, like, what's going on with their social media or, like, how it is on the outside.
And, you know, like I said, I had lost touch with this case when it happened, but I think I did see the update that they said that it was on purpose. But I didn't know the background, like, just thinking about how sad it is that Devontae went and was asking for food and that they were being deprived of food, yet putting this happy front on social media. It's like, you know, you got adopted into this family and it should be great, but you're being abused.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Man.
That was Family Annihilators. I don't know what our next topic will be, but we'll figure it out. Oh, I think I wanted to do, like, paranormal.
Paranormal?
If there's something like that, where somebody, like, blames a ghost. Or, like, like an exorcism. Because you know how those exorcism things, the person always ends up dying?
Oh, yeah.
Like Emily Rose.
Yeah.
Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Oh, my God. And you know what? Exorcism stuff scares the fuck out of me. I don't know what
I probably
it is.
won't want to research this by myself. We'll have to, like, do it together, like, sitting in the same room. Because when I was researching this, I think I told you this already, I, like, heard a noise in the other room, and then I instantly thought of Ben's episode last time where he said that the Golden State Killer emerged from the room.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm here by myself, it's so quiet, and then I had to, like, stop research. And this isn't even, like, a scary one, right? It's just a sad one.
Yeah.
And I just freaked myself out. So I'll probably freak myself out with exorcisms, so I don't want to be alone.
Yeah, like, I get, like... Out of all paranormal things, ever since I was a kid, just anything dealing with, like, possession and, like, exorcisms, like,
Are you afraid it's going to happen to you?
I don't know. Like, it's just... I don't think so, but, like, I don't know. It freaks me out. But, I mean, there are definitely a couple cases that we can do.
All right. Decided. We're going to do exorcism deaths next week. Or some sort of paranormal thingy.
Yeah.
Where there's a paranormal... background to it.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time.
Adios, guys.
Bye.